Okay, welcome everyone to the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners work session on Tuesday, May 21st. I'm Kelly McNicholas Curry. I am subbing in as chair today while Greg Postman and Steve Child are out of town. And I do want to take a moment and just check to see if Greg and Steve can hear us over Zoom. Steve, can you let us know if you can hear us and if we can hear you?
Can hear me loud and clear, and I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Best that it's been in a while. I think we've got it fixed, so that's great. And then Francie
nice.
Jacober and Petty Clapper are also here in the room with us. So we are going to start off our work session today with an update on Lincoln Creek. We have representatives from Environmental Health and Healthy Rivers and Streams. Welcome. Please introduce yourself and let us know, do you guys want to, are we going to have a dialogue? Do you want to present? How would you like this to go?
So we'll do a quick presentation as an update, and then we're looking for some guidance from the BoCC on moving forward with the Lincoln Creek work group.
Yeah.
Get that word out of my mouth.
Sounds good. Thank you for being here.
Okay. Thank you, and good afternoon. Kurt Dahl, Pickens County Environmental Health Manager.
Yeah, Lisa Tasker, Pickens County Healthy Rivers Program.
And we wanted to come today to talk a little bit more about Lincoln Creek and give you an update on the progress that has been going on with this. If you recall, back in January, we came to you to talk to you about an EPA report that had been published at that point and a presentation that was happening on Lincoln Creek and the work that the EPA had been doing. As a reminder, the EPA had been asked to come in and do some sampling on Lincoln Creek because there had been a fish kill in Grizzly Reservoir, and there was concern that there was contamination, and at the time the thought was that Ruby Mine might be contributing contamination to Lincoln Creek that ultimately caused the fish kill. Colorado Parks and Wildlife and the Division of Mining and Reclamation at the state contacted the EPA, and the EPA came in 2022 and did some sampling of the creek from above the Ruby Mine all the way down to the confluence with the Roaring Fork River. The report itself identified there was contamination. The majority of the concern was around metals. Copper, aluminum, and iron were all present in very high concentrations, and the upper portion of the creek itself was considered toxic to aquatic life. If you remember that presentation, we showed you a few pictures, and you can see some of the sediment that comes out of the creek, orangish in color, and in other parts actually more whitish in color, and that's the aluminum oxide versus an iron oxide. So after the EPA produced that report, one of the pieces that in that report was that they found in their data that the majority of the contamination was naturally occurring and not coming from Ruby Mine itself. I believe it was something akin to their data indicated about 2% of contamination was coming from the mine, and the other was mostly coming from what they called a mineralized tributary, which is adjacent to the mine and the mine property. And because of the fact that this is natural caused in their determination, it wasn't something that fell under their department to address any further. So they indicated that they would support any future activities as a consultant, but actual physical work or sampling wasn't something that they would be doing unless we had additional data that indicated maybe there was something man-made that was causing this and not natural. Because of this, we had a number of local groups that had already been working with the EPA on doing the sampling that occurred in 2022, indicate that just because the EPA felt like it was natural and they didn't need to address it, that didn't mean that we should stop work and look at not only characterizing the drainage more than just with a couple of samples that the EPA had, but do a better job, but also to start talking about, well, if there are issues here, are there opportunities to do some type of work to mitigate the issues, especially if it's going to continue on indefinitely? So that work group then formed and had its first meeting the following week in February after the EPA to start talking about how we would like to move forward as a group. And that coalition is a number of agencies: Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the Forest Service, Independence Pass Foundation, Roaring Fork Conservancy, Lisa with Healthy Rivers, my department, Environmental Health, and most recently, the University of Colorado, their Institute of Arctic and Alpine Research has joined the group as well.
Trout Unlimited's been.
And Trout Unlimited as well, thank you.
Yeah, City of Aspen.
City of Aspen, and then the few interested individuals as well. And really, the group has expressed wanting to further understand the contamination that's going on in Lincoln Creek, better understand what's going on, and then predict what will happen in the future. One of the things that the EPA report talked about was concerns over climate change may be contributing to these natural causes and increasing the concentrations of metals as we see increases in temperatures. So the group is looking at trying to understand that with the eye towards also understanding how that might impact the Roaring Fork River itself. Last fall, we had a fish kill at North Star. And the leading theory behind why we saw that was because an increase in temperatures. We had a really warm time period combined with copper that we think was contributed from Lincoln Creek itself, because as you increase temperature, the toxicity with copper goes up to fish. And so that may have what caused that fish kill. So if we're thinking that Lincoln Creek may be contributing impacts to that part of the Roaring Fork or even lower parts, we would like to have a better understanding of what that might look like in the future. Was that something that happened once, or are we going to have concerns that maybe this is going to happen or could happen multiple times? So characterizing those things is an important piece for the group, and then starting to understand this idea of, can we do anything about it? What do we do about it? What does that even look like if there's a desire to do that? Then it also becomes one of the questions that we would like to be able to answer.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
The mining at Ruby,
Mhm.
is it just, they didn't do any milling, they didn't do any processing, they just mined the ore and then shipped it somewhere else for milling? So there's no acid treatment, because generally when you're looking to take gold or out, you use acid wash.
Right. Do you know, off the top of my head, I don't believe so.
I just briefly went through the report, and then I don't see anything specific
I
to the
don't
history of
think
the
so.
mining activity at the Ruby mine.
The concern with the mine is there's an adit, which is the water coming out of the mine
Right,
and then
right.
combining with Lincoln Creek, and that contributing anything that might be with metals or other contaminants.
I'm just thinking
there.
about
So,
any
yeah.
acid base that could be leaching the minerals out more rapidly than non-acid.
The concern with the EPA report was that's a natural process, that what we're seeing is the permafrost, if you will, because at that altitude we have water locked up in the mountains
Right,
themselves.
right.
And as that is thawing, because of the geology of the area, there's sulfur there that's actually then creating the acid and then leaching the metals out that way, and that's the natural process.
So it wouldn't be like a
that's going on.
man-made source of acid that would have been used in treatment of the ore to extract the gold.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
So back to the work group. So the work group is large enough that what we've done to move these ideas forward is divided out into a couple of subgroups. One subgroup itself is really thinking about short-term monitoring that's going on this summer. We have a number of projects that are happening already that were either planned. Rich, before the meeting, talked about Grizzly Reservoir. Healthy Rivers Board has funded the Roaring Fork Conservancy and the Environmental Health Department to go do water sampling around Grizzly Reservoir because there's construction going on there. They're relining the dam. So we applied for that. Colorado Parks and Wildlife had plans in place to already do some water sampling, as well as placing cameras, like trail cameras up there, to look at the different flow rates to get a visual observation of the flow rates, because one of the questions we have is, how do those flow rates impact what the contaminants are and the level of contaminants in the creek? And the Forest Service is looking at doing some sediment samples in the stream. And now CU has 2 grad students that they also just received some funding from the Healthy Rivers Board around looking at what are called rare earth metals and what those levels look like in the stream itself. There's some data they have from the Snake River over by feeds Lake Dillon. where they're seeing increases in rare earth metals, and rare earth metals have toxicity like metals that we talk about with copper and that piece. We don't typically sample for those because they're typically in very low quantities and not a concern. But because of this natural process, there's concern from this group that maybe we're seeing increases in Colorado streams as well from that. So they have 2 grad students working on that. So there's a lot of activity going on this summer around sampling. So we've been coordinating as a group with the short-term group, and there's a fantastic calendar that Megan with River Watch and Chad with the Roaring Fork Conservancy have put together, indicating all of the different sampling events we have through October, from June to basically October, looking at how we're coordinating those efforts, looking at how we're coordinating the sampling itself and the lab that's running those samples. And River Watch is doing those samples for us, which is a program from the Division of Natural Resources. So that's that group. Then we have a group around communications. There were a lot of questions that we had around, not just with camping, what do we do with the water, what's the recreation, and with the dam drained, we're not as worried about fishing necessarily this year, but will be communication around that, as well as public impacts when we think about Lincoln Creek itself and the gulch. Because of the construction going on, we have large equipment that will be in there working on the dam, and so there are efforts to coordinate getting public information out so that people understand there may be impacts with traveling Independence Pass, getting up the Lincoln Gulch, and those activities. And so there's a subgroup working on that. And then the last one is a subgroup that is thinking more around this idea of more long-term sampling, not necessarily around the summer, and then understanding more about this idea of mitigation and what it means to actually, if we wanted to as a community think about what we do for treatment, what does that even look like? Because there's a huge gamut of the possibilities that could happen, and so starting to frame that piece would be really important, as well as thinking about the long-term sampling, because I think characterization is going to take several years. So we're looking at, as a group, a project that is going to entail several years at least, and then if as a community we decide we want to do mitigation even further than that, but at this point we're just trying to get moving with those pieces. The long-term mitigation group has even gone so far as to start talking about hiring a contractor, and gotten to the point of even getting bids back from, or not bids back, but scopes of work back from contractors, talking about some of the pieces that we as a group have a fair amount of expertise in water sampling, very strong there, but we don't know as much around mitigation and the long-term sampling of the program. And so the idea being that we would like to see some assistance from a contractor that has that experience, thinking about, well, if you're doing this over the long term, wanting to inform a project that would talk about mitigation, you need to think about these things and where your sampling points are. So the group has even gotten so far as to wanting to do that. So in doing all of that, we're realizing that this group is actually picking up steam, and I will tell you that in the past I've had other groups where we've had, this is a great idea, and it loses its steam, right, over time. This one so far has not. And I think as we get into organizing this group, this coalition, managing it, thinking about a contractor, all of those pieces, I think it becomes a question of really, I think we need to think about, bless you. It makes sense on some level to have an agency help with the management of this project. And so in doing all of this and in thinking about the work going forward, I think in talking with Laura, one of the questions we've had is if we were going to bring an agency in to help with managing this and resourcing it, is that something that environmental health, the board would want environmental health and healthy rivers, either individually or as both of us, take on the full role of managing it and not just right now we're helping to facilitate it, but truly take it under and run it as a program. And so I think that's one of the questions that would, I think there's been some interest in the board from what I can gather, and whether or not we should move forward with going back to the group with that information and saying, yes, there is, or do we think about another agency helping with that? But I think about hiring contractors and resources and those sorts of things, and having a procurement department or having a place where we do have resources is an important part of the conversation to have. But moving that forward, I think that's going to be an important piece of success.
Yeah, go ahead, Francie.
Yeah, so, I mean, would you guys have the bandwidth to manage this? That's sort of the question, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think we would have to come back and say, because right now neither of us truly have that, and I think that's one of the questions we would have. If it comes under our departments, we would still need assistance in managing that, but I think there's probably not an agency there that wouldn't need that assistance,
Oh.
right? I think especially right now, it's been very heavy because we're trying to get the ball rolling, and so there's been a lot of these projects trying to get it moving, and then there will be a little less as we move forward, but there will definitely be a piece that we'll still have to manage.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah, and one issue is that is sort of at the forefront for me, I feel like, in Healthy Rivers, and the group has brought this up, and is the data management, because we're gonna have, the Forest Service, CPW, RFC, Environmental Health, INSTAR, Institute of Arctic and Alpine Research. They are all gonna be collecting data, and it's gonna be really important probably to have one place, to have a repository of all that data, so it's very accessible. And so I think that, to me, makes a great deal of sense in hiring a contractor to maybe organize that. But then the other issue is, where will that live, I think, into perpetuity. And for the, it seemed like the county, Kurt and I have talked about this, it seemed like the county would probably be a logical place for that to exist. I mean, potentially, I don't know if the Forest Service has a bandwidth for that, or, because they have a lot of issues with, oftentimes with funding and employees and a lot of change. So, so it's that piece, managing that piece seems really critical going forward, especially if we're going to try and ever, really understand long-term trends, and if anybody really wants to even start talking about mitigation or something like that. That was.
Where's the data that's already been collected being stored?
Right
It's-
now, we have the EPA report. We haven't collected data as a team, so the EPA report has their own data that's in that report.
And CPW has some data that
data.
they've collected. For the Forest Service has done macroinvertebrate data sampling. So there's
So it's not centralized.
exactly.
No, and given all of the agencies, that would be one of the important pieces. And having each of us having access to that data for, our own purposes as well.
Francie,
But
are you good? Okay, I'm gonna go to Greg. Have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. It sounds, what I think here is that this is really complicated, and there are a lot of agencies involved, from the federal level down to the local level.
Mhm.
I'm glad, I'm so grateful that so many people are focusing attention on this. And I'm also hearing that we need to figure out who's going to manage it and who's going to be the repository for the data. And it may be too soon to tell who should manage it, and I kind of see Laura sitting in the back of you there, and I kind of want to talk to her before I say anything more about that. But I'm just wondering, what sort of information do you need to move forward if we're still trying to figure out who should be the ultimate repository of the information, who should be managing it, and if they're able. If it turns out that we're the only ones able to do this, then I think we should, but I'm not sure we're ready to make that decision yet. That's what I'm hearing. But and what can I say? I'm inspired that you're all taking this so seriously. So thank you.
And Greg, I think in terms of the process, I agree. I think it's, if the board is interested in having this come under the county, I would want to go back to the group and actually have that very deliberate conversation to make sure someone else isn't going, well, we thought it should fall under us. Right? Because I can think of a couple of other agencies where it might, but I think no one has stepped up to actually say, yeah, no, we want it. I think there's just been this, we recognize that at some point there's a need to move
Wonder
this.
why.
And it is. It's certainly complicated, and the inner workings of all of the different agencies in itself is complicated. But I think there's a recognition that having some additional help with managing the project management of this is going to be huge. And so I would want to go back and make sure that everybody, there wasn't someone else thinking the same thing. I don't think there is, honestly, but I think we need to have that very deliberately. But we wanted to check with you all first before we got that far.
Francie and then Steve.
No.
I'm sorry, Patty and then Steve.
Yeah,
I'm
real
looking at you.
quick. Healthy Rivers and Stream, as the name goes, Healthy Rivers and Stream. Of course, it seems appropriate, but The concern for me is the amount of money. We do have a source for funding for Healthy Rivers and Streams, but we have all these other projects we look at. And so if we were to take this on under Healthy Rivers and Streams, that our money would technically be focused there. I don't think we'd have enough money to focus on any of the other issues that we all think we also need to be doing. So that's a consideration that needs to be made. And the reach of the Roaring Fork is pretty much to a certain point in the forest. So I don't know how much authority or whatever we have over that stretch that is really out of our authority. And anything would have to go through NEPA, it's federal. So that would be a consideration that's also timely and, financially impactful. So it's not as simple as the other Superfund site we were familiar with. It had a couple of jurisdictions, but not quite
Simple?
this many.
Yeah.
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 And the other thing, too, I want to throw out really quick is, with my background and stuff, I would really like to be more in the loop with this community group that's gotten together to maybe sit in there as rep, if the board approves and wants somebody there, I would be willing to sit in on those meetings. Not a few times a month, but maybe on occasion.
And I think at this point, the group is looking at getting the sampling in place to characterize it and really just trying to understand what mitigation is, not necessarily going down that path, because doing nothing may be an option too. And it may be exactly what you talk about. If costs are so high that we can't afford it, it may be, or we think about looking
Or the
for other
mitigation
external-
itself is more impactful than just monitoring and, seeing what we can do on that
I
end.
think at this point, it's just trying to understand what that
Yeah.
really means.
Thanks,
So,
Kurt.
Yeah, and really, we're trying to just bring you guys up to speed on sort of, in the moment right now, even though, there's not a lot of things that have been decided. I mean, granted, 5 of these entities have come to the Healthy Rivers program, and the board has granted them money to move forward with what they want to do, but we really wanted to bring you into this conversation now because, there are all these different ideas that are floating around a little bit, and there is momentum going in some directions, and we just wanted to get your feedback, bring you up to speed, and I think it'd be great, Patty, if you join the group too. It'd be really great.
Put that down to get consensus around here. One of our items to discuss. Let me go to Steve, and then I have a few questions also.
And I have one more too.
Okay.
But I can go after you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. I'm wondering if the county should be the fiscal agent for this, but perhaps have someone else or some other company be, who's really experts in these kind of things, or something could maybe be the lead agency in terms of collecting and keeping all the data and whatnot. I'm thinking there might be something like Lodi Hydrologic, a local company, maybe has the expertise to manage something like this. Also, resident of Little Rock Village is a retired hydrologist, Ned Andrews. He managed the flood releases in the Grand Canyon. That was his project. He managed stuff for the Vale Mining Company in Brazil, where they had the huge blowout on the dam down there. So he has experience with mining, large mining things and clean up operations, stuff like.
Steve,
Yeah.
you're
There are other people too who we could tap in for their expertise, either or maybe to participate in the discussions. That's all.
Ned Andrews has been involved with the group, just to let you know.
Yeah, Ned has been involved in the group. I think he's the one that connected CU with our group. But project management is also one of the pieces that's been brought up with this idea of a contractor that, we've had 5 contractors indicate to us some scope of research but project management's one of the pieces that the group has talked about in terms of having their assistance with recognizing the limitations of everyone within the group for project management. So that could be an option as well. I think that would just be included in a scope of work.
So what I have some kind of really specific questions, but I just want to hone in a little bit on this conversation. So I'm hearing a little bit of different possible roles, like agency coordination, project management, potential fiscal agent. It seems like all of those can function together. They can all be held and operated individually. So I think the question I'm hearing for us today is decide to what extent do we want to offer to the working group Picken County's availability to serve in any of these roles? Is that a fair, am I summarizing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you would take that back and the membership of the working group will kind of figure out where you all coalesce and what the recommendation would be to create that structure.
Correct.
Okay, because I think that would be important to me. It'd be great to retain, it'd be great to have alignment among working group members on how this, and how this should function, and I'm not clear that it exists right now. So that I think should be a point of discussion for us. And then in addition, Patty's interest in representing the board on the community subgroup. Some of those specific questions I have is, will any of the Healthy Rivers and Streams money have to come to us for approval, or were they within the amounts that the board were able to
Yes,
provide? Some of them were.
the CPW was actually under the $15,000. I think actually all of them are under $15,000, and one will come to you next week is part of the U.S. Forest Service collection agreement, and that's at $10,000.
Okay, thank you. Yep. And then what is the role of the water companies been and the dam managers been in this? And then how are the flows from the dam construction going to be affected, which we anticipate for the summer?
Right. So Twin Lakes Canal Company has been part of the group. They've been a very good working partner with the Grizzly Reservoir project itself. We've been working with them on their construction phases and when they think they're going to be doing the different aspects. Especially as we think about our Grizzly Reservoir project, there are times when we want to sample. And so they've been sharing that information with us. They've also been participating in the larger group and including the communications group and working with their contractor so that the public information group, we're still working through the process, but they're working with their contractor to get that information to the communications group so we can get it out to the public. So they've been really good at working with us on this. In terms of the plan for the Grizzly Reservoir project, what is planned right now, and as they've told us that obviously with the precipitation, things can change just based on needs, but the plan for now is in early June, they will start draining the reservoir down through the tunnel. However, they cannot drain the entire reservoir through the tunnel. There's a small portion that they will have to then drain the rest of the reservoir through, by opening the floodgates to drain the rest of it. At that point, they plan to have Lincoln Creek, the upper portion of Lincoln Creek, diverted through the tunnel and continuing to go through to the east side. What they call the New York diversion collection system is going to be shut off and allowed to flow down its natural path where it converges with Lincoln Creek in the lower portion of Lincoln Creek to keep water there. That's the plan through the construction. They have some sediment to move on the dam. However, what we don't know at this point is if there was a call for water, they may need to then turn and divert the upper portion of Lincoln Creek around the reservoir to the lower portion of Lincoln Creek to meet that call.
For the Cameo.
Cameo is the biggest, that's the
That's
main
the
one.
largest,
Right, the largest
one. That's
one.
most impactful, yeah.
And obviously that'll be weather dependent, temperature dependent, moisture dependent, and when it comes, if it comes, kind of thing. So apparently in some years there hasn't been, so there's a little bit of hope maybe we'll have a wet enough season that it won't happen, but that's the plan for that at this point.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. We'll have to get frequent updates, I think, on this over the summer.
Yeah, and public information out, so if the water changes colors, people know why, because remember what happened the last time we got slammed with that. And they're gonna sample the sediments. Are they gonna do soil sampling? Sediment sampling?
There's sediment sampling, we know in the stream. I think at this point we definitely have that planned. I think
Yeah.
we're still,
Yeah.
there's some question about, whether or not to do it in the bottom of the reservoir.
I
but
think we
certainly
should do it in the bottom of the reservoir, see what's sitting down there.
Well, I think there's some there's some discussions that need to happen because of ownership of the reservoir and
Opportunity.
yes, exactly. There's that has been an ongoing conversation. But what is happening is the Forest Service has some plans to do some sediment sampling above and below the reservoir along Lincoln Creek. You'll see more of that next week. And so, in lieu of the fact that perhaps the bottom of the reservoir we may be asked to not sample that. I think that there will at least be some pretty, I think, important data that can be collected from the sediments above and below and some comparing and contrasting by the Forest Service. So I think that'll be, that's helpful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do have some questions. Are you done?
Go ahead, yes, go ahead.
I have a sort of combination of questions that go together. So is this something that's happened elsewhere in Colorado recently as minerals have been more exposed to the watershed? And if so, in those cases, does it continue to happen or does it start and stop? And thirdly, is there any information that might lead us to a conclusion that if we have more rain, will this stop because we won't be running less water through this deposits of copper? Or can the copper be depleted over time? Will it be depleted? Will it just run its course and then we'll be done? Do we know any of that?
So yes, it is a problem in Colorado and the American West, including Alaska. The group has been sharing articles that have come out in Scientific America. There's been some research published from CU that talks about seeing this natural process and the increase in metals in different rivers. Peekaboo Gulch, which is on the other side of Independence Pass. I don't remember the exact location, was one I know was specifically brought up, but I know the EPA brought up several others. And then the articles themselves that the group has been sharing indicate this is an issue throughout the West. So.
Yeah, and like the Snake River has, the rare earth metals have increased by an order of magnitude over the last 25 years, slowly but surely.
Without abatement, it's increasingly
Correct, there's no,
more concentrated.
And there was no mining on the Snake River.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's what's kind of so
I want to
depressing,
know what
honestly.
rare earth metal is.
And then,
And then-
is there a chance for the sediment or for the deposits to be depleted over time, or?
Maybe theoretically, but we're talking maybe millions and millions of years even. I mean, I think we don't know how much of that's in the mountain, but we're I don't
Not
think
counting
anybody's
on it.
talked about it. It's certainly not going to end in our lifetime. So the natural process itself will at this point continue to go forward, and we don't see an end to that, which is one of the
And it actually could be worse,
Yeah.
worsened by rain events and then warmer temperatures. You're just allowing more water and oxygen actually to reach
That level.
the other more rocks, more of the pyrite, and then you get those chemical processes that happen. And so even in rain events, it may actually help with some dilution, but there also may be some, more metals that become leached.
To become exposed.
And that's why we want to do more sampling, is to try to better characterize what we think may be happening when we have those events. Are we concerned about having major rain events? And we see an increase in metals, and so that's part of the goal of wanting to continue to do some sampling, is to characterize those sorts of things.
So it would appear from the information that you have to date that this is a natural geologic event which we just happened to be at the wrong time of.
Downstream of.
Downstream of.
Contributed by our poor decisions of the last 200 years.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go to Greg, and then I want to get us focused on some of this discussion here in the
Great,
next
thank
10
you.
minutes.
I just wanted to ask how wide is the net you're casting up there? Are you looking at the entire Ruby Mountain area, or are you looking on the other side of the ridge? I know there are some mine tunnels that traverse and penetrate that mountain, and it would be just good to know that we're getting the full picture up there. And I just wanted to know just how far afield are you looking? How big is this survey area going to be? And would it include the other side of the ridge to the east?
At this point, we haven't talked about doing anything on the other side of the ridge to the east, but what we've talked about is above the Ruby Mine, sampling all the way down to again, just above North Star in the Roaring Fork River, and various sampling all the way up and down that. So Roaring Fork would probably mostly just have 3 samples at this point is what we're talking about. The North Star side, and then above the convergence of Lincoln Creek and below it. And then a series of them all the way up Lincoln Creek, all the way above the mine.
In addition to sampling, is there any other geologic analysis? Like, are there any people who can understand the way the rocks are stacked up there?
That's one of the pieces of, and looking at hiring a contractor and utilizing that expertise to think about, again, how do we inform, how does that sampling inform that information that we already have, and the geologic aspects and what we can expect in the future.
And I might add to that. Mindy May with CPW, she made a very clear comment during the presentation on February 1st with EPA and all of their partners. And, she was very concerned about, whether or not most of the runoff was coming out of the adit or was coming out of the mines, and whether or not, EPA just didn't quite get this right. And she did remark very strongly in front of the audience to some questions that she finally was convinced from hiking around up there and going out during the sampling exercises that a good majority of the water, at least for now, this is what she told everyone, was coming out of this mineralized tributary. So she had some very, she was very skeptical, I can just tell you. And she said it took her quite a bit of time, but she was very convinced, and she actually said that in front of the whole group during that public meeting.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a few more minutes here. Let's figure out, let's ask the easy question. How is the board amenable to Patty's request to join the communications subcommittee? Is that the one you want?
Yeah, and as best I can, depending upon my other meetings and schedules, I'd like to be participating.
I'm also interested.
I just have a very strong background in the mining industry and geology and minerals and cleanups.
And there's a larger work group that all of the subgroups meet with, and then there's a communication subgroup as well. So there are multiple opportunities too. That's great.
Thanks, Patty, for your interest.
Yeah, I mean, time to put that old brain to good use.
No experience wasted, right?
I want to be in, whatever, we can figure that out, but I definitely want to be involved. This is when we need Tommy Clapper at the table, because he's the one I always went to for information related to mine waste and geology.
Okay, and then related to kind of the offer for what Pickett County can bring to this working group, I just want to understand bounds to it. The way that I've understood the question is, what can we offer to help keep this group organized and having momentum and all of that. My interpretation is that this is sort of up to the point of any mitigation planning, that are any resources that we would decide to offer today would go up to that point, right? And then we would have a whole separate conversation related to what might mitigation look like, who might handle all that, and reconsider roles at that, and funding and things at that point. Is that fair bounds? Go ahead.
And I think the opportunities to use the Healthy Rivers and Streams Fund to that certain point of dollar amount has been appropriate in the past and should continue until such time as it needs to come to the board for any higher amounts.
Okay. And so what I think I've heard is requests, to offer to the working group as expansive or as narrow as the working group might decide, related to acting as in the coordinating agency for the group, acting as the data repository. I heard both hiring a contractor and project management. I don't know if those are one and the same.
that's been a discussion with the group in terms of, do we include that in the scope of work? I think there's an aspect of recognizing that some of that project management could live with a contractor, some of that could live with, if it's our departments, our departments.
Okay.
But having a combination of both, as well as the data
Okay.
management you talked about, I think we'd like to see that contractor have the data management aspect fall under them. It would be a lot easier for us to handle that.
Okay.
That answer your question?
That makes more sense to me. And then a fiscal agent role as necessary and I think customary that we
When the
often
big
do.
bucks come in.
Yeah. Well, and that is something that, you know, I do anticipate, and so I want to check my own understanding that there would be multiple contributors to funding these things that,
May come up in the future.
yeah, I don't know that to be true, so maybe let us know, you know, would we be on the hook for paying for the contractor? Is anyone else envisioning chipping in? Does the board want to say, we'll chip in, but we expect other people to also chip in? I think those would be good
I
expectations.
think we need
to-
funding partners.
Okay,
And Independence Pass Foundation has already indicated they've set aside funding to help with the
Yeah.
hiring of a contractor. So
Okay.
there's already one agency thinking about the same.
Since most of the reach is within the forest.
Right.
okay. I'm personally good with all this. We'll check in with everybody. The data repository thing, I'm not sure we're the best suited for that. But, you know, it seems like some of these other scientific endeavors might be better suited to that, but I can leave that to the working group to sort out. How, are you all comfortable with Pickens County potentially serving in
Well, I don't know.
all of
It's-
these roles or not all of
It
these
seems to
roles?
me like the Forest Service would be the place. I understand they're not generously funded as a rule, but it seems to me that the land over which the stream runs that's carrying the copper is on Forest Service land. So it seems like they would be the appropriate repository for the data. That's my opinion. I mean, if this group thinks that's not true, or it should be Pickens County, I could concede that, but just, you know, from what I've heard so far, it seems like the Forest Service would be the appropriate agency.
And they're one that we would like to have a very straight conversation to make sure they're not thinking the same thing before we get too
Make sure
far.
they're not what?
They're not thinking the same thing we are in terms of an agency managing it. We haven't heard that they have, but I think, you know, again, it was what's the cart, what's the horse?
In other
What do we
words,
ask first?
They're thinking we
Right,
should
sure.
manage it and we're thinking they should manage
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But I, you know, and I can't speak for them, and that's why I want to go back, but I
Yeah.
wanted to see,
Cool.
we wanted to see what
Let's have
you
the
all thought
discussion.
before we just started making offers and
Okay,
talking
let's
about
check
it.
in with Greg and Steve.
Greg had a thumbs up, yeah. Good,
Okay.
thanks, Greg.
Steve, thoughts on kind of the expansiveness of Pickens County's offer to play a role here?
Well, I definitely think we should play a major role. The service is gonna have to okay whatever mitigation efforts we come up with there, and they really need to be as much involved in this as we are, like Francie suggests, so. I would take what we have discussed to the working group, and if it ends up being us kind of coordinating all of the efforts, I'm okay with that. We need to get real good scientific experts, you know, doing the part of this thing, and we need to rely on them and not us to collect that information, I think.
Okay. I think what I'm hearing is, we want to do whatever we need to keep the momentum going here and recognize that other people's expertise may play better roles in some of this. We're not sort of demanding that we need to play all of these roles. We leave it to the working group to identify everybody's best assets. Is that a fair summation? Okay. Okay, is there anything else we missed on this?
So we would go to the group and make this, and then I presume we will come back to you with a report of where the group lands so that we can then talk about moving forward. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a little background to this is, so there was definite momentum to go and look for somebody to perhaps, you know, fill in, to look for these contractors to come in and fill in for these tasks that we were talking about, anything from data repository, you know, efforts to project management. And when we started talking about, well, you know, the dollars that were going to be involved with this, it looked like potentially Pickens County may be, you know, asked to put in quite a bit towards this. And so it seemed best to come to you guys and tell you that that is kind of where the group was heading. And, you know, so they already have gotten proposals from 5 contractors, and we've been reviewing them. The whole group has. And the other issue too is that, you know, Pickens County Healthy Rivers, it appears, you know, that we obviously our funding mechanism and so far have, you know, put in a fair amount towards some of the ongoing monitoring for the summer, which is great. That we were able to do that. So we know that we're probably going to be, people will be coming to us in the future. It's pretty much guaranteed. So I think, so it was just, we just want to make sure that we're keeping our board up to date too, and that they understand that, you know, if we're being asked to really put in sort of a majority of the funding up front, that we just make sure that they know that we're heavily involved and the county's heavily involved in how the BoCC wants to engage with this group going forward. That's kind of sort of some of the background for coming to you guys today.
Yeah, I think it needs to be made very clear that the Healthy Rivers and Streams Fund is funding lots of things, and we've got another huge ask that may be coming towards this fund. So we need to keep all of that in mind. Not that this is not a critical issue, but we only have a dollar that can go so far, and we need to figure out that.
Okay, and I just want to recognize we do have some other working group members here.
Thanks,
Karen
guys.
Teague with the Independence Pass Foundation and others. Nice to see you all. Thank you for joining. And I anticipate that we'll get updates about this over the summer as this is all happening. Okay, great. I see Greg, you have a last comment?
I just wanted to check in with Laura to make sure if there are legal implications or, you know, regarding creating this working group or the working relationships we have with all the various entities. Is there a path that you think that we need to follow, or is there anything that we need to talk to you about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm encouraged that everyone is continuing to come to the table. I did have concerns that everybody's coming to the table and separately asking Healthy Rivers to fund this without giving this board the authority to really take the big picture view of what about this really, really drives you and you want to exercise some sort of control over and some sort of long-term processes on, right? Because when those things happen, you don't have the same opportunity to engage and lead them, right? Like if everybody in the working group goes out and finds a contractor, it may be for a different purpose or a different time frame or a different level than you might write an RFP for, right? So trying to think critically about how you want to engage with this, because these are folks who are offering their time and resources. And if this is something that's important to the board, that's a direction for staff to make sure that we're offering the right level of time and resources.
Do you think we've done that sufficiently?
I think you guys are engaged. I just want to make sure staff has a sense of where you are on it.
Have we been clear enough?
Mhm.
You guys good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Great to
guys.
see you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. We'll move on to our next item, which is the Citizen Grant Review Committee interview with Jennifer Mason. Hi, we have Charlotte Anderson here to present the item, and pardon us for starting a few minutes late. We have plenty of time to do this. Thank you.
Charlotte Anderson with the Administration Office. And we have Jennifer Mason here, who has applied for a position on the Citizen Grant Review Committee. As you all know, their busy season is coming up in August, and we have a few vacancies. We have one adult regular vacancy, and we have another vacancy that you all approved be adult or youth a few years ago, and then another youth vacancy. We're currently continuing to advertise. This is, Jennifer's application is the only one we've received so far. And we'll continue advertising. And then, as I mentioned in the AIS, Lisa Yorker is going to reach out to HR, I believe, on the intern.
Oh, that came in under the intern program?
Yes, and see if we can't get some youth applicants out of that,
That's a
and as
good
well as the Aspen High School, connecting with them.
Okay, great. Jennifer, thank you for applying and joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, please tell us a bit about yourself and your interest in joining this committee.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Mason. My husband Joe and I bought the Braun property in Woody Creek 4 years ago, and we moved here at that time full-time. We had been here since 2010 part-time, and we have an 11-year-old daughter that we're raising here in the Valley. And prior to giving birth to her, I was in corporate America working in wealth management, and during that time I had the opportunity to serve on several non-for-profit organization boards and was very involved in the allocations committee for the United Way of Greater Philadelphia.
Wow.
And when Lindsay LaFaro brought this to my attention, because I've been serving on the buddy board for the last 3 years, she said, Jennifer, I remember you were very involved with the United Way in Philadelphia Allocations Committee. Would you be interested in looking at this now that you're much more settled in the Valley? And I said, absolutely. I'd be very interested in doing this because it's a very hands-on position.
Great, wonderful. Well, I'm going to open it up to board members to ask questions. Francie, go ahead.
Well, welcome, and thank you so much for your application. And we don't often get somebody with that kind of expertise in this particular area, somebody who's actually read grant applications and made decisions on them. It's really exciting that we have an applicant with that kind of experience, and also the desire to do community service here. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's anything in particular that you look for, or you did with United Way in the past to help you make selections that were what you considered appropriate.
Well, the United Way of Greater Philadelphia, kind of like living here in the Valley, it's expansive. It's not just one community that we were looking at and making decisions for. So you really had to kind of get on the ground and understand the needs. And I was very lucky throughout my career to work for employers who allowed me that time to actually get on the ground, meet with different executive directors of the various non-for-profit organizations, and really kind of understand what powers a community, because it's so very different. And through my work with the Buddy program, we've been involved with them for 12, 13 years. And Lindsay always asked me to serve on the board, and I said I wouldn't do it until I lived here full time and had the ability to actually have a buddy of my own. And I have a little buddy, and I've had it for 3 years. She's wonderful, in the Basalt Elementary School. And I wanted to do it down in Basalt because that wasn't a community I understood. We lived here at the Aspen Alps. We had a condo here for many years, and then we moved to Woody Creek. So I felt I had a good understanding, and my daughter was here in the schools, but I didn't really understand Basalt and how people lived down there and what drove them and what their needs were. So I'm very hands-on that way, trying to find things out.
That's really great. My sister was involved with the Buddy program. She ran the capital campaign recently. Her name is Cynthia Colbrook. I don't know if you ran into her while you were involved. Yeah. So anyway, it's really great to have you here, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Patty, I'll go to you. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you, and I'm really familiar with the Brown property. It's beautiful. My
Have you
kids grew up
seen
with the
it
Brown
right
kids.
now? Have you
No,
seen
I
it?
haven't seen it since
Okay,
they lived there.
it's currently in a tent form because we're remodeling.
Yeah.
And I promised Valerie and Fred, when we bought the property, we would be great caretakers of it.
Yeah.
We were going to renovate it because it hadn't been renovated in a while, but we were going to keep the footprint and keep,
Yeah. It's great, because I did just drive by there the other day. I took the long way back checking things out, but, so I saw that. Thank you for applying, and you do have amazing credentials. I just have one question. Do we give healthy community funds to the buddy program? Is there gonna be a conflict?
We do give funds to the buddy program quite a bit.
Let me check that out.
Yeah.
Are you on the board now?
I
at the buddy
am.
program?
I am.
That's a good question, Patty.
But I think you're choosing a buddy in Basalt, so is remarkable. I thought that, forward thinking, that I don't understand the community, and what better than to help a young person in that community to learn what the community is about.
Thank you.
Because trust me, those kids will tell you.
She is wonderful, and
Yeah.
I just can't say enough about her. And I meet with her every week, and we have lunch together on Wednesdays. And two of her friends have added themselves on to our meetings, so that's been a lot of fun. And I've learned a lot about them as well, and how they live. And
We have a member, which used to be a member of our staff, who was a buddy, who nurtured her buddy forever through college, and then after college, she promised to take her on a trip anywhere in the world, and the two of them went on an internet. I can't remember where they went.
Italy.
Was it Italy? Was Cindy? Yeah. And we kind of live vicariously through that relationship for the whole life of that young person.
wonderful.
So yeah. So do we?
All right, let me go to Greg and Steve and see if you have any questions. Oh, Sam also has a hand raised. Sam, do you have a clarification for Patty's question or something else? Nice to see you.
Yeah, sorry, I was just listening in. I was just going to say that we do provide funding this year for the buddy program, and we're going to be having everyone applying again this year for partnership grants. But I would also just indicate that on the current CGRC, we do have some folks who different boards, and typically the way that's handled with regard to conflict of interest is folks will just recuse themselves from discussions about funding for particular programs that they may be involved with.
Great. I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure we disclose. So yeah.
That was my thought. I looked at the roster. I'm like, I think all of these people are on boards that receive money
Yeah,
from the buddy
really.
program. Okay, thank you, Sam. And
Thanks, Sam.
and Greg, go ahead, and then we'll go to Steve.
Yeah, thank you so much for applying, and I'm really excited to see you come in, and I think you'd be a great addition to the board, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Greg, for your help with the Smith Hill Way traffic situation as well. I really appreciate that a lot. We unfortunately were one of the people involved in an auto accident there.
Oh, no.
So I listened in a few weeks ago when you had your meeting, and I just want to thank you for keeping that at the front.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that you're involved down Valley. A whole lot of the nonprofits who apply to our programs are ones that go clear down as far as Parachute.
Yeah.
There in the lower valley, a whole lot of groups with connections to the Latino community, and so it's good that you're tuned in to what's going on in Basalt, because that opens up a whole other world of the people who live and work in this valley, and that will help you, I think, to make better decisions. Just to be aware of all of our greater community that goes for many miles outside the county. And I was thinking of Cindy's buddy also. I'm glad you brought that up, Patty, because that's a tremendous program, and I appreciate you being involved in that. So I don't have any problems with you. If you, I'd be just as happy if we could close the applications, but I know that's not the process we follow. I hope you can serve on this board. That'd be a great addition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I am curious, what was the budget for the grant allocations committee for the United Way?
We ran a little over 4 million,
Okay.
just because we were serving a larger area.
Yeah, great. Okay. And probably more diverse. I do think we cover
Well,
a lot of things, but
It's interesting, just spending as much time as I have in the Basalt School District. I mean, the diversity is vast. It's so much more than I even understood, just living here.
Great.
in Aspen, so
Well, good. Well, I'm pleased to meet you, and I would be happy to
pleasure
appoint
to
you
meet
to
you.
Yeah, so I have a
committee as well.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have one other adult vacancy for regular position, so technically, we could appoint someone now and still keep the advertising open for that other seat, right?
Correct.
Is the fifth seat for a student or?
There's one student and one student.
Yes.
Okay, so the fifth seat, we would be recruiting for the student
Yeah.
position. Yeah, okay. Have the applications closed for this committee yet? Okay. I'm happy to have that deliberation now, if folks,
I have
unless
no
you would like more
question.
time.
I don't need to deliberate at all. I'm thrilled with this
When can you
possibility.
start?
Looking forward to it.
Greg and Steve, would you be okay if we gave direction for that resolution to come forward appointing Jennifer, or would you like some more time to contemplate? They're both frozen.
Yes,
Sorry,
they are.
we can't hear you.
I'm chewing on an apple to give it
All right, I think, sorry, we lost you there for a minute. Did you hear my question? Would you be okay for us to give direction to Charlotte to bring a resolution appointing Jennifer, or would you like more time to think about it?
And frozen again.
Must be something on our end, because they both are.
I know, I think we did get it.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. All right.
Either that or Greg's just seriously.
Well, I'll use my,
contemplating the question. There
our
he is.
majority here to give that direction to Charlotte.
They're back. Now they're
All
off.
right, I was gonna say we're having technical.
Steve's
Thank
on.
you.
They could
Okay,
give a
I
thumbs
hope
up.
that's
Okay.
good. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very
So
much.
pleased to meet you and have you on board.
Thanks a lot, Jennifer.
Oh,
It's
thank
really
you.
nice to meet you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay. All right, moving on, review of future agendas. Ugh, I don't think is this, oh, my internet's working. Steve, we're having some technical difficulties. I think, all right, Greg is off for the rest of the day. Have fun, Greg, with your family. And we are moving on to future agendas. Rich, do you have any
I do.
review?
I do. You may grab your calendars, because there's a few things we need to chat about here, so.
Okay, well, I'll open my calendar.
Okay, Grizzly Creek.
Where's the one
Let's see, we got that taken care of, so never mind on it. Albany, site visit date. So it's a 3-hour plus travel near Thompson Creek. It needs to happen before June 26th, which is the second reading. You did talk about doing this at the end of May, early June. Now there's several commissioners out during that time, so is there different than, and this is different than Emma Field's tour, which is on June 11th. So is there any date in
Which
there that
one is
does
the
work?
Albany, which?
What is the Albany
Thompson
visit?
Divide.
Oh, I keep forgetting. I think of Albany Park, Albany, but you were talking Jerome Park.
Yes,
And it's
That's-
for a limited development conservation parcel?
right.
Okay. A land use application.
Oh, this is,
Up there.
really? Up above Spring Gulch? Is that what you're talking about?
Near Thompson Creek area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So what were the dates?
Well, you had all talked about doing it at the end of May, early June, but it seems like there's a few you're going to be out.
Yeah, and I'm going to be out of town now the 18th and 19th of June.
And it needs to happen before the 26th.
just trying to look at the calendar here, hang on.
And I'm working election week on the 20th for elections.
I'm pretty much available. I don't have any plans.
So find something the majority can go to and I'll see what I can do around it. I'll try.
Okay.
I know, my dates are a little tricky. How about June
The 11th
20th?
of June is the distillery
Yes.
on our way to Basalt.
Or maybe with Basalt Town Council,
Yeah, in fact, yes, it is. Looks like that John, that's later on the list here. John did talk to Ryan Mahoney, and it's confirmed, so you will have that on the 11th.
What time is that?
They will likely be around 4:30.
4:30. So that's
No
like,
dinner's been discussed, it
yeah.
says here.
And so our meeting is gonna be short that day?
Well, we have to be in Basalt by 2, I think,
Yeah,
on the 11th for the site visit, and then we go on a meeting with Basalt Town Council.
right.
So we don't have a work session?
I think we have one in the morning. It should be on our schedule, our upcoming agendas,
Yeah, I don't know how far.
which I have right here.
Okay.
It will have to be light,
Yeah.
for sure.
We have 2 items starting at 1.
Which one of them we cannot move, it's a update on ambulance licensing.
So you mean we're gonna leave here at 2?
Yeah,
2:15 hold.
Go to the distillery and then go to Basalt?
yeah.
Okay,
So that still leaves,
So you could zoom in and just meet us in Basalt.
Yeah,
some
I
time.
could do,
You could zoom in from Basalt, and we'll meet you.
that's a good idea.
the 17th or the 20th
I can do the 17th, I can't do the 20th.
or the 12th in the morning, the 12th. Oh, wait, no, we have a regular session, the 19th.
Okay, let me have a look here, so.
19th, I'm in Denver at a doctor's appointment.
Oh, and I think our offices are closed, aren't they?
yes,
Juneteenth?
that is, that's a holiday.
17th looks good,
Which is a holiday?
The
19th?
19th, uh-huh.
We do Juneteenth?
yes.
Okay.
What was the first one, Kelly, you tossed out?
I said the 17th.
They're all good
17th?
for me.
I'll be coming from Palisade.
I can
so I'll
do
just
the
have to pack up
17th.
really quick and get over here.
All right, so that's a Monday, 17th? Patty, you said you're good?
I'm good on the 17th.
Under Steve's.
Steve, are you available to go up to Thompson Divide on June 17th?
Yep, that should work. That looks good.
Wow, nice work.
I would request a more midday time if at all
Yes,
possible.
please.
Midday, okay?
Well, I'm just gonna be going from home.
Yeah. I'll be leaving Palisade from camping, but I'll need to break down my tent and my kids are coming on this site visit.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah,
That's a good idea. It's
Yeah.
awesome up there.
cool.
All right.
I'm
Sounds
coming
like
off
we
of
have a
food and
date. We'll
wine,
get
so
with
no
Greg
guarantee.
and let him know.
On my brain cell count.
Let's see, Pickens County Cares, dates proposed for September 10th. Any conflicts?
Really?
That's
Have to
way
look
out there.
That far ahead?
You
That's
don't have
like
to.
Impossible for me.
Okay,
It's a normal work session day anyway,
After
so you're
20.
probably planning to be here.
okay, all right. We'll move on from that.
Sep-
And then,
September 10th?
yeah, September 10th, if you want to just pop it into your, it's your real life calendar.
Real life
Yeah,
calendar.
yeah, that's cool. I like that.
I'm keeping track of everybody's
I
schedules
see
on
that.
here.
Does your presence here mean we're gonna have our meeting here?
No, he's just coming down to have us go,
Can hold the exec here.
except grassroots
then-
has to take a breakdown.
Then
And then
maybe
Kelly,
we
that's
can't
all
have
I've
it
got
here.
for items. So we did talk about the June 11th. Looks like Basalt Council's on for that. No dinner has been discussed, so if you are wanting dinner, we can certainly push that.
I would prefer to do it with dinner, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
We'll suggest it.
okay.
Basalt's flush, they can afford to pay.
And it has great restaurants.
I'll tell Brian you said that. He's
go
actually
ahead.
listening in,
Yeah.
I just saw him.
Okay, that's all I had, Kelly, thanks.
Okay, anyone else have other future agenda items to discuss?
One quick thing, on the 11th, June 11th, it's not noted that we're having a joint meeting, just a site visit. We just need to add that we're going on, or we will at the same time be having a site visit. I mean, a joint meeting with Basalt, so people know that we will be there
Yeah.
jointly meeting.
Okay,
That's all I have. The other one I will take care of when we do working agreements.
And who's going on the 13th to the, we can all go, can't we? We're not gonna even talk to each other.
To where?
To the lunch, food and wine?
We've noticed it. I think Charlotte noticed it.
I think we do every year.
Yeah,
just
and then
in
I just
case.
want to let Charlotte know, because she's usually watching, that I will be out of town the 19th and probably the 18th to be in Denver for a doctor's appointment.
Okay.
Okay, I will know, I'm gonna miss the meeting on June 4th. That's already noted on our future agendas. I will
Okay.
provide any input I have ahead of time to Greg for you all. And anything else on future agendas? No? Okay. Let's go ahead and do department updates and membership reports. Patty, are you ready?
I am ready.
Sorry, Steve, I forgot to check in with you. Steve, did you have any future agenda items? Are you okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Accra. We've got 4 tickets to the luncheon. Yay! I'm really excited that we're going to have the commissioners and either Peacock or somebody filling in his spot. It's great. You guys are going to love it. It's really fun. It's at the Jerome. So that will be interesting, fun. It's just a great way to kick off Food and Wine. The Economic Development District with Northwest COG. The symposium we had the 1st of May over in Silverthorne was awesome, as they always are. There was the Something Collective. It's a group that's contracted with Northwest COG. They presented a survey they did, which is really interesting, and I'm going to see if somewhere further on in the year we can have them do a presentation. Jeffrey Woodruff was with me, and he was great to have him there. He also met with these folks about this continuum they did of surveying locals, guests, and second homeowners, and seeing where they all fit in on this continuum of issues. And it was really interesting, different from the surveys we usually do. It gives the whole community-based understanding or whatever of the different demographics. It was really interesting. So they're fine-tuning it to do, and because the slide deck that they had there was, they put together like the night before because they just finished gathering the information. So they're trying to hone it down, and so I will be following up hopefully with staff and with the chair to see if we can get them to, Zoom in at one of our meetings and give us a brief to see if it's something we may want to incorporate into our surveys in the future or do separately. It was very interesting information. The state demographer stayed the whole day with us, Elizabeth Garner. She was incredible. Her data is so interesting about the growing demographics of the seniors in our counties and in the state and in the country. It's huge, and the birth rates and the workers that we're looking forward to in the future and how they're declining and the out migration and in migration. She's fascinating. So when COG gets it on the website, I'll let you guys know, because it's just watching Elizabeth. Plus, she's got such a keen sense of humor and a great way of presenting her numbers. She also did some very specific numbers as far as the populace we would expect, because I asked her, expect to see in our detention centers. Yeah. And that age group is declining because we're all getting old and we don't tend to be in the jails. So it was really, really good information. She was fascinating. Then they did presentations with different representatives from different boards of like chambers. So from Vail, and Eliza was there from Accra. Then there were 4 panelists, and they really presented different aspects of how they're doing management versus marketing. So it was very interesting. It was a great conference. Management. We're banishing tourists.
That makes a lot more sense.
I was like, is that a Freudian
Are we
slip or
banning people
something?
from coming now? We're tired of the growth.
Those people know about managing versus
Okay.
marketing. So the conference itself, it's a great event. And so once COG gets it up on the website, I'll let you guys know. An interesting Northwest COG, we're trudging along with some different issues and funding and looking at still the broadband issue with Thor. The elevator program is still a great source of income for COG because that money can be used for other issues through COG, like just management of the office itself. One of the big things I got about the Intermountain TPR, I just got a thing from Brian Pettit that they were looking at splitting our mountain region against the wishes of the people who live in the mountain region. It was coming from the powers that be somewhere on the Front Range. They have taken it off the table for discussion at this time.
Good.
So Brian is keeping an eye on it to make sure that it doesn't sneak back up on us in the future without us being involved in the conversation from the get-go to squelch it again, because it just doesn't work for the mountain regions. It would really fractionalize what we're trying to do here. So that's my updates. Thank you.
Excellent, Patty, thank you. Francie?
Well, as I mentioned last time, I didn't go to the CAST meeting in Denver, but I am going in the end of August, and then again in January, I believe it is. August is.
Jackson Hole?
One of them is in Jackson Hole, but I think that's the winter one. I think the next one is Durango. I have to check and see. I don't know why I don't know, but I just don't. And I don't have the computer that has that on it. So, and then I imagine we're going to do a final CCI or
Next Tuesday,
legislative
Levi's.
report. So I'm not going to do that.
Tuesday, Levi's doing a wrap-up.
Yeah, thank you. And that's pretty much all I have. I'm missing Kevin Warner. He's not in Carbondale because they're
The building's down.
rebuilding the office, and they've cut down amazing trees. When you walk out of the post office now, instead of seeing trees, you see all the way to Sopris. It's very shocking. It's surprising. It's like you're in a different place. But anyway, so Kevin's not in Carbondale, and I look forward to his return. And that's all I have.
Do you know, should we expect any more managed burns? Do you know anything about?
I haven't seen anything recently from Jennifer, but, or maybe from the fire people, but I think there probably are some more, but especially with this weather,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't answer that, sorry.
okay.
There were what do they call it? Wildland firefighters? Their trucks, like multiple, like tens or more, parked along I-70 and in Grand Junction when I was down there this week.
Oh, really?
So they're gearing up, or there's something cooking. So yeah, they were their presence was very obvious.
If you guys have not seen the footage of the ditch blowout,
I've seen the ditch
look it up.
blowout.
It's pretty
The one on
interesting.
Crown Mountain?
No, it was
Is it the gravel
between
pit?
Catherine Store Road and Carbondale on 82, and it turns out it was the gravel pits ditch blowout.
It's a pipe.
I wondered, it seemed like such an odd place.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
I looked at the picture. I was like, "Wait a minute, what am I looking at?"
It's
I couldn't figure out
huge.
what ditch was
It is
above there.
huge.
It was
And-
really huge.
And there's a pipe that you can see where the pipe breached. Because I drove through that afternoon after the road was open, and it was a significant amount of gravel, ironically, river rock that came down across there. But right after that, going eastbound, was that horrible accident at Catherine's store. So I didn't get stuck in the gravel pit incident. I got stuck in this horrible accident at Catherine's store.
Yeah, that boy died.
A mess.
Then this morning driving here, this is off the topic, of course, but I got into incredible mud on East Sopris Creek. I could barely stay on the road. I was swerving, it was just turning my car sideways. I was going like 5 miles an hour, and I couldn't get
So slippery?
consistent tread. And it was so muddy. Must have rained a ton up there last night or something.
It poured rain at my house all night.
Yeah, well, we had rain, but that was just really, I mean, I took the back roads not expecting
Had
that
this much
at all.
water in my roof catch.
Okay, I'll go with my board
Yeah,
reports.
get us back on track.
Yeah, we're not behind, so we're okay. APSHA. First of all, are you able to cover the June 5th APSHA meeting?
I think so.
Don't let me forget.
Right now, I don't think I have a conflict. Like I say, I have the wrong computer for today, so.
We'll just have to confirm that, and if
Yeah, okay.
I will be driving back, and I won't be able to attend.
Okay.
Okay. And that, you may have read, I just want to give an update about the conversation that was reported in the paper. You weren't part of that, from Carson, related to the compliance situation.
I didn't see the paper.
Oh,
Okay.
I was
the
there.
issue
Anyway,
with
there-
your chairman?
I was at that meeting. I
Yeah.
was online.
Yeah, there's been some frustration with board members, and, Carson in particular wanted to bring up with the rest of the board, issues about how compliance cases are being managed at APSHA. in one particular case, he was frustrated that a person who had found to have been violating the rules and overcharging rent for a tenant who had not been qualified for APSHA was not fined in any way, according to our fine violation schedule. And so this opened up a whole conversation between the board and the staff about, what exactly the regulations say related to the staff's discretion on compliance. Carson was of the opinion that staff had instituted new policy to interpret that without coming through to the board. I think staff and the attorney's interpretation was more related to taking that discretion and not checking in with the board on the application of that discretion as to whether a fine is required or whether if someone comes into compliance or not, if it has to be levied. So this will lead to further conversations about how the board might engage with staff on the application of discretion in compliance cases. It can get tricky because we hear hearings and appeals of compliance, so getting into the nitty-gritties on case to case to help the board help staff understand what their discretion should be can be really tricky and impossible to navigate. So from that frustration, Carson has raised issues related to the IGA and whether the IGA renders the APSHA board meaningless, essentially. And yeah, we have it in our work plan to revisit the IGA every 5 years, and so we're going to do that work, which we haven't done, and potentially make recommendations to the city and the county about changes that the APSHA board might recommend to the IGA, but that is in the future and kind of in response to this frustration with compliance. I'm a bit of the opinion that I can see how staff interpreted their discretion and that we should figure out a way to be clearer with staff and how they should be enforcing cases. I do also think that APSHA has done more on the compliance front in the last year than it has in its previous 39 years. We've hired a specific compliance staff. She has undertaken 180 compliance cases, in addition to auditing a fifth of the ownership inventory for compliance. So I'm still of the opinion that we're doing better now than we ever have, even if we're trying to figure out how to really make our compliance meaningful in APSHA. So just wasn't sure if the board wanted to check in on that.
No, thanks for the update, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly.
Yes, and then Francie and I think we'll have a little bit of time on June 18th to review with this board some of the other work plan and regulatory items to get your input for rule changes and stuff in APSHA. So we'll talk about those then. Related to CCI, I would say we should start thinking about any legislative priorities we would want to bring to CCI.
The real estate transfer tax?
Yeah, let's do that one again. So that process happens generally over the summer. That legislative agenda gets fixed, set in the fall, and then they start working to find sponsors, et cetera, and write legislative language over the winter. Let's start thinking about those.
Just really already?
I know. I'm really glad to have the
Budget,
legislative
just
session
when you
over
get done, you start
personally.
over again.
I will. CCAT has offered to come to our board and over Zoom, or we could host them in person if we wanted to, and present their work in the legislative session and successes or misses if we would like. I don't know if people would find that meaningful. We can ask Levi maybe next week if he thinks that would be meaningful. But I think it's a great way to leverage our membership with them.
I don't think we've ever really heard from them like that.
Yeah. And then their summer retreat is August 15th and 16th in Gunnison. I'm going to try to hike over and go.
Oh, cool.
I think it's the best group personally. If anyone wants to go to the retreat, it's always lively, progressive debate.
I'm not sure how she's getting back, but she's gonna go. So somebody may have to be her designated driver.
That's right.
Such
If
a
somebody
great
else
hike.
goes,
So will
I'll-
you go up to, what's it called? Not
Gothic?
Ghost,
Gothic?
yeah, Gothic.
Yeah. Usually there is a shuttle service that comes even further up Schofield Pass.
Oh, there is
and
now?
picks you up.
Oh, I didn't know
So you
that.
don't have to hike all the way out to Gothic. Yeah, I forget Dolly's shuttles or something. I think.
Oh, I
is what
didn't
it's
know that. You
called.
just call
Yeah.
ahead and range it?
Yeah. They come every hour, I think.
It
Oh,
picks
that's
you up over
awesome.
here and
Certain
drives you
hours
over
like
and you say you hiked it.
I have some fun
That is a
stories
great
about
hike.
hiking over. Yeah, it is. It's great. 2 years in a row, I slept in and missed my group, and then had to like run after them to catch them. But I caught them at the end. All right, the Colorado River Basin. There was an article in today's paper. I haven't had a chance to read it, but what it was covering is information that I will send out to you all when I get it from April Long, who is the chair of the Roundtable Basin now. And it's contemplates the different proposals for the upper and lower river management. So how the 4 states and the 3 states are going to get together and figure out how to keep water in Lake Mead and Lake Powell when that negotiation is supposed to wrap up in the next 2 years. So there's some really interesting different dynamics there that really changed the paradigm, or proposed to change the paradigm for how water is being used in the lower basin, where they just sort of turn on their taps with very little regard to hydrology in the upper basin, and that their ratcheting down would be directly tied to water that is flowing down the river, that water is evaporating out of the river, et cetera. So I think they're really interesting discussions. We also got a hydrology update. The hydrology in the state actually looks really good. Most of the reservoirs, except for Blue Mesa, are anticipated to fill. So we're in kind of good shape.
What about
this
Fleming
year.
Gorge? It's not in the state, but
No, I think it is as
you think
well.
it's filling?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So that's all really good. The CJCC, as you know, is on hold. And then Rawapa was not able to meet for lack of quorum earlier this month.
Can I just add something real quick? And then I know Steve still has to. ACRA, we talked about maybe having ACRA come forward to this board, because they've never come before the Board of Commissioners. They usually just deal with the city, to explain what's happening with their move to the Armory building, the timeframes, and what they actually do as far as guest visitor management, not marketing. So would the board be interested in trying to set something up at some point?
Sure.
Okay, and I'll check with the chairman on that. Can you write that on my list of, your list, John's list, somebody's list? Thank you. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, I'm done. Steve, over to you.
Hey, thank you. Let's see, a couple of different things. In Club 20, I'm sort of planning the transition here. In September, Club 20, or I think it'll be in September, they'll be doing a meeting in Pitkin County where Pitkin County can pick 3 people to be the representatives from the Pitkin County community to Club 20. And for the last umpty-ump years, it's been Rachel and me, and then usually some other third person who's really never attended. So this September, I'm planning on putting my name in again to be on the board. I'm not sure if Rachel's gonna continue doing anything with Club 20. She hasn't been attending the meetings lately, this past year. So Pitkin County is a member, and our board, I think that somebody should be there to just have a Pitkin County commissioner besides me be listed as one of the board members for Club 20.
I would like to do
there.
that, Steve.
Okay, and I can let you know when the date is. So right now I'm planning on being an individual member and continuing going to Club 20 meetings when I can, but I wouldn't then be representing Pickett County after I'm no longer commissioner. So that's great, Francie.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's see, on the opioid settlement committee, they are looking, there's gonna be a big statewide meeting in late September about, statewide opioid settlement, communities all getting together. And they do not have anybody to represent Pickett County right now, or Garfield County. I think there were 3 of our counties had not submitted any names. I was thinking that Jenny Lyons would be the best one who should go for Pickett County, because she would then be ongoing after. I mean, I could go to the meeting, but then, since I will then be dropping off of the committee a few months later, it didn't make as much sense for me as for a staff person. But then looking at the bigger transition, pretty much all of the counties in our 6-county region have a commissioner involved in the different meetings, except Garfield County is, I don't think, ever had a commissioner be there, but all the other counties have had commissioners regularly involved. And so come January, I won't be there anymore to do that, and just to be thinking, right now Jenny Lyons is our voting representative on the board, but having a commissioner involved, I think, is really good and is advisable, and has been very productive for having an elected official from the different counties be involved has been very helpful. So just something to be thinking about going forward. Let's see, on county commissioner CCI type issues, there was the opening in Clear Creek County due to the death of Sean Davis, and my cousin's husband, Mitch Houston, was appointed by Governor Polis to fill that position. So he's appointed until the transition in January, and then whoever wins in the election in November will take over at that point. So I was really pleased to see him get appointed. He has really great credentials for community activism in the Clear Creek County for quite a few decades now. So I was pleased to see that he got appointed to that. And I hope you guys get to meet him sometime. My cousin was actually up in Aspen, dealing with child care situations in the state of Colorado for, planning for that stuff. In some years, while I've been commissioner, but she's no longer in that position that brings her here anymore, but I'm pleased to see her once in a while and be in touch with her. Let's see, that's kind of all I have. Everything's kind of in the off season now for these different groups, so. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, we're running a little ahead. Let's go to board open discussion. Rich, do you have anything for us?
Okay, I do. I've got a few items here. I'm sure you're aware that the impacts that are going to be taking place on 92 starting in June. You're going to be closing down one lane.
An 82? Did you say 92?
I'm sorry, 82. What did I say, 92? 82.
'Cause
The
we're
highway
hoping-
right outside of here on the
We're
way
hoping
out.
it's 92.
Yes, yeah, no kidding. That'd have been much better.
What's going to happen?
So what CDOT is going to be doing a lot of work through the month of June, starting, I believe it's May 28th and going to the first part of June, or July. They're going to be going in and checking all of the joints on the bridges. So they're going to shut down one lane both ways for the entire month, coming up between here and Basalt in the canyon.
Okay.
Expecting.
So
over the top.
that is going to create, as you can imagine, already
40-minute
back up.
delays.
they're estimating 40, but we're guessing it's going to be probably much more than that. So
Yeah.
we as staff had went around and talked to the different departments about those kind of impacts. And one of the things we wanted to run by you and get your approval on, which we do need your blessing, is change of hours for that month, at least for this building only. And going from an 8:30 start time to a 9 o'clock and getting that out. It allows staff.
They
a
open at
little-
8:30 and close at 9. That's a short day.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's good.
Staff
No,
would
we
like
would
that.
open at 9 instead of 8:30, give a half hour, little extra time for the staff to try to manage their way through, if that's all right with
Do
you
they
all.
want
The
that?
rest of the, what's that?
Do they want that?
Yes, yeah, they all said they were good with it.
And that means they leave a little later in the afternoon normally?
Well, we close at 4:30 normally, so we won't change the
see.
closing hours. So we just open a half hour later,
Okay.
just to get a little
Gives
time.
them a little flex time.
Yeah,
There.
plus the
And
public
anyway,
too,
it's
I
up
mean,
valley
coming in.
traffic that's gonna be affected, yeah.
Yes.
Just don't tell anybody about Watson Divide.
Yeah, well,
No, we've already done work on Watson Divide, and we're gonna maintain the flow of traffic, is my understanding, and dust control.
yeah.
And the same thing on Lower River.
Yeah, the impacts are gonna be pretty big all over. I think there'll be alternate routes are gonna be certainly utilized. And then they're gonna open it up to the 2 lanes, but there'll be work on paving and re-asphalting.
It's interesting that they
So-
expect the impacts to be so terrible, because really, when you go through Snowmass Canyon, there are not traffic issues in Snowmass Canyon. There are before Snowmass Canyon.
True.
And after Snowmass Canyon, but there's never traffic in Snowmass Canyon.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting the way that happens.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, unless there's an accident, but
Yeah.
otherwise it usually starts
Just-
running pretty freely.
Going home, a little bit more traffic,
Mm-hmm,
but coming up, it's just like, at least the times that I come
Mm-hmm.
up.
Raft is gonna add some additional buses, thinking maybe if they can get some additional cars out of the mix. So they're offering that. As far as our departments go, we're asking certainly to still have the level of service coverage, having people in the office as much as we can, at least flexing some hours with some staff, like fleet, different departments are gonna try to flex a little bit of their hours. We are gonna put the pool cars, we're gonna take 2 of them from up here down valley to Basalt, so that anybody that's gonna be using those for trips or conferences or whatever, they don't have to come up to get a car to turn around and drive all the way back. So we're looking at putting a couple of pool cars down there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. When is this gonna be?
It starts, I think it's May 28th.
End
This
of the
isn't
month to
work
the
they can
1st
do
of
at
July.
night?
They have to do it during
It's
food and
closed-
wine?
I don't know what their work hours are gonna be, but it's gonna be closed 24 hours, one lane, both
For
ways.
how long?
For the month of June, pretty much. And then the work will still continue on, but they'll open it up.
I
They'll
first
have-
heard it was through the summer, the whole summer, so I'm glad
Yeah,
it's
they're-
just for the month.
Well, that's just the closing of the one lane. There is gonna be work all summer. And they're
We're
gonna
gonna
try
try and do the brush mitigation along that section at the same time.
yeah.
Yeah, they've already been doing work on the curb cuts for ADA access by the RAPTA bus stops. That's already being done with partial closures on several locations.
Yeah. I do know you have a joint meeting with the Open Space and Trails, and I think the thought was that, I think that's on June 4th, and that would just be both in-person hybrid, who can make it, and who don't, you do virtual, and I'm guessing that'll be the same with you all too. I don't know what you're looking like, down valley.
Why don't we do it in Basalt?
Well, you still have members here that have to travel down.
And we have staff
But
at
down valley was all right. I thought it was up
No,
valley.
it's
that-
both ways.
both lanes.
Yeah.
Oh, I misunderstood. Oh,
It's both ways. Yeah.
oh, well then.
So rush hour leaving is gonna be backed up, as
Mm-hmm.
you know, in the afternoon, so.
So can we do a
Most-
virtual
most
site
of those-
visit?
What-
Most of the big bridge expansion joints are on the upper level going towards Aspen, but I'm sure there's stuff on the lower level they need to be doing too.
Yeah,
Not as much on the lower level, but there is still some.
yeah. Well, we definitely know there's gonna be some pretty big impacts. We are gonna be closing the River Center, location down valley, which Stubby's building, on June 5th, because we're gonna be doing some, work with solar panel installation up there. it'll only impact one department. Actually, Subways, Stubbies, all the other businesses will stay open. It just impacts our area. So we're gonna
Upstairs
be
there on
shutting
that
down
one
there,
side.
yeah. So, but it'll be closed, I believe on that Wednesday, while they're putting that on. But are you okay with the 9 o'clock start time? Is a
Yeah.
Good idea.
kind of a thumbs up there?
It
Okay.
helps a little bit.
Hey, Rich, I think the board might need to do a resolution to change that. Or, let me rephrase.
Really?
It's the statute, CRS 3010-109, I think, requires the county to establish the office hours for a county building by resolution.
Oh,
So we could do it just real quick, informal reso at the next BoCC meeting, regular meeting.
Tomorrow?
Sure, throw it on the agenda
It'd be
tomorrow.
after the fact. We'd have a regular meeting again tomorrow.
have
Is
one
our next
tomorrow.
regular
Yeah,
meeting.
so put it on the
Yeah, so
agenda
do
for
it tomorrow.
Yeah,
Good idea.
perfect.
oh, that's good to know.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll get it specifically set up then for those times. I think Charlotte handed you all a draft letter of support for the Dolores Canyon. Did you all get a chance
Yes.
to take a look at that?
Yes, I love it.
There's a couple things when I read it. It's actually to the President of the United States, but it refers to, we urged the President throughout this letter. So one of those need to change, either who we're sending it to or else we're urging him to take action. So I think that can certainly be corrected. And then I noticed that Representative Bobert was not on here either. And I'm guessing,
Oh, I think she doesn't support it.
oh, she doesn't? Is that why it's?
Yeah, she doesn't. Yeah, you're
Do we
right.
know
That
that?
last, that last
No, I
sentence.
don't, but that's what
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm right there.
And urge you, President Biden.
She's
Yeah,
hard
I
to get a
think
hold of
throughout
right
it,
now.
it
She's
kinda
outside
refers
the
to,
courthouse every day.
Yeah, and
Like
the language
it's being
needs
sent
it.
to somebody else, so. But if you're good with this, we can certainly, and if you have any corrections or anything you want to send, I'm not sure
I
who
thought the
authored
president
it.
does have the authority to designate national
does.
monuments.
It is up to the president, I believe.
Yeah, so
Well,
we're,
it would be under the Antiquities Act that the president could do that. I'm actually opposed to sending this letter.
why?
I don't think it has been vetted enough in terms of the uranium, the high concentrations of uranium deposits in southwestern Colorado, some of which are within the boundaries of the proposed national monument. The country's just quit buying uranium from Russia, which we had been buying uranium from Russia.
It's to mine uranium.
We're trying to solve the climate crisis, and one of the partial solutions to having lowering our carbon footprint is actually to have more nuclear generated electricity, which we need uranium for. So to me, it's kind of a quandary that we want to preserve this, all this canyon land, and a lot of it I know would be really is high quality, would make a good national monument. But they just sort of threw the blanket over the whole area and said this should all be national monument. And I think it needs more study to make sure that we're not kind of shooting ourselves in the foot and putting land in the national monument that should be left out for its potential for uranium production. So that's what I would delay the designation of the national monument and do more study on it. That's why I'm opposed to sending this particular letter. I wouldn't mind drafting our own Pickens County letter and putting that in, that we're generally in favor of this national monument designation, but it needs more vetting at this time to make sure that we're taking into account the nation's need for uranium production from this part of Colorado. So that would be my choice, and I would vote against sending this particular letter.
Who, is this just a Pickens County letter? Or did somebody send this to us to send on?
No, it came from, it's being circulated by different environmental groups, so different people are getting this same letter and just asking for their endorsement of it.
Well, I disagree with you, Steve. I would support mailing this letter because even though we may have to go back to building new nuclear power plants and use uranium, that is a short-term fix, and this is a long-time area with incredible geologic and Native American history, and I would like to protect it rather than mine it for uranium.
What was the genesis of this letter? Who asked us to sign it?
This came, I believe Greg had given it to Charlotte to run by you all, so.
Okay.
And unfortunately, Greg's not on to talk more about
Yeah,
it. So.
I think it's not like we can take back a uranium mine once it's mined. I mean, you can't like put back the natural scenic value of that area. And until we figure out what to do with spent nuclear waste at nuclear power plants, which we didn't do the first time around when we built nuclear power plants. That's why they're sitting vacant and they're storing massive amounts of nuclear waste, which I think will take us a long time to get back to using nuclear power. Uranium has so many unintended consequences. It might be good for producing energy, but it also produces other health effects that you can also not take back. On top of that, if we don't get this designated as a monument now, with what might happen in November, it will never be designated as a monument, any inch of that property. So I can move forward with this letter.
Well, I have a different consideration I'd like to raise, if it's okay. I would ask that we just hold off and maybe revisit it, because I want to check in with, I'd like to talk with Hattie with American Whitewater, because they've been part of this whole, there's been this whole community effort related to a special management area for the Dolores River, like similar to our Wild and Scenic River effort, that there have been people talking about this for 10 years. That was the tool that they came up with. It's running into its own hurdles. But if, I don't want this to be something that is
Gets
going
in
to
that way.
undermine all of that work,
That I can,
So I
Well,
just would
they
like to get
presented
clarity.
this at an event for Liz last summer, I believe it was. Well, whatever, before Liz was elected, Elizabeth. And I think Hattie was at that meeting when it was presented. Was it the Shoemaker's house, Sloan's house?
I wasn't there.
And I thought Hattie was at that meeting.
well,
So
why don't we let Kelly vet it with,
Yeah, that's fine
with
with me.
Hattie?
Okay.
But
Yeah.
let's
I
not
just-
waste time, because I'm just concerned about what might happen in November. And this we would lose any
Sure.
plans to, so, and if it comes back,
Can we just add this as a note for next week's?
Yeah, we can
And
do that,
I'll
yeah.
check in
Give
with
you a
it.
chance to talk
Thanks
to
for
Greg
doing
too
that.
and get a little background on
good
it.
idea, Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's see. NACO policy resolution platform changes due Wednesday,
Oh,
June 12th.
June 12th.
NACO?
Has Kelly in parentheses here?
Oh, yes. Did you all see that? Do you guys get the emails from NACO? I thought we all got them, but I forwarded it to John because
I'm sorry if I got it, I haven't read it.
we had wanted to bring forward to NACO policy changes, and they're due June 12th. So if we want to bring those forward related to the airport.
No, they're resolutions, they're not policy changes, they're resolutions that will be
Oh, these are
introduced.
the ones that,
That
okay.
be introduced at their meeting. We need to contact Jessica Monahan
Mm-hmm.
and see if we need to attend to that as policy decision or if it's different from the
I just don't want to miss
resolutions.
a deadline. If that's the right, if that's not the deadline, great. But I thought that that's how these.
No, it's, I think it's different. We can, but I don't know. Let's check with Jessica. She's
Yeah.
the one who would know if the resolution is separate from a policy or if it's one and the same. Then we need to just tell them we have these two that we want to bring forward. We don't have to have them drafted by then. We just need to have them on their radar. So Jessica Monahan, our lobbyist, great catch, Kelly. She will know that.
Okay, great.
Because we don't want to get all the way to Florida and say you missed the deadline. Oh, whoops, we can get back on the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
can we follow up with her
Yes.
ASAP so we know?
We will do that,
And
yes.
she'll know exactly what we need to do.
Okay, and those were the only ones on NACO, right? I mean, that was it. There was another,
No, we're just
Okay.
doing those.
okay, all right.
Are you two going to NACO?
I'm going to the meeting and
I am not going.
John and I are going. Short,
Yeah, I'll
we're
go with you.
coming in on Sunday, flying back on Tuesday. Well, he's flying back on Monday.
Let's see, just a couple of other ones. Independence Pass is now going to be opening May 30th.
Not after today, it may be June 30th.
Yeah, pending any additional snow or equipment failures. So
dumping
that's at
up
least
there.
they're planning on it. So just so you know, they postponed that original date that they were looking at. And then just one quick question. Gary had asked, and we always hate to pass on grant opportunities, but the challenge is this is a Brush Creek to AAB trail that you guys have not made a decision on yet, but there is a $12 million grant opportunity sitting out there. We could make application, but it would have to take a letter from the board supporting the application itself. And I think we've thought until a real decision's kind of made on that process, it's probably not wise to go ahead and do that. But just wanted to let you know we're going to be passing on, which is a pretty good DOT grant for about $12 million. But just wanted to make sure everybody's kind
For
of.
what?
Two bridges.
Yeah.
No,
for the,
I mean, for bridges?
Yeah, for the bridges. So.
I mean, we haven't
Just,
even done
I know it's one of those challenging things.
we haven't
It's,
done the site visit yet.
I know, and you guys have not taken it up and taken a formal position yet. So it's just, it was brought to us by our grant team and said, hey, this one really fits. Do you guys want to do something? And we said, yeah, it's a tough spot for the board to.
If it
You
were
know,
for
to do something like
multimodal
that.
transportation or something else besides bridges?
It's specific. It would be specific to this project. So
We don't
just-
have a project
too
yet.
premature.
I hate to say
I
it,
just-
but yeah, we don't have a project yet. We have some thoughts, but
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
plan.
I don't know,
chances-
do we have enough to apply for it? I still would like this board to support this project, and you'll see the benefit that it could have provided all summer long, or all, the whole month of June.
Every time I drive down and see those bridges, I'll just be so happy that we did that.
You will, when you see lots of people riding their bikes on them.
Yeah, for
Including me.
for 2 months out of the year, we'll see them packed.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not have that discussion now.
For
Yeah,
me,
and
I
again,
hate
I
to
don't- I'm
pass
not
up
trying
the
to open it up.
opportunity for money, but
Okay.
I have not made up my mind.
Yeah.
And
I just wanted to check
I'm pretty
in.
sure Steve is not in favor of it, correct, Steve?
I'm more in favor of the upper bridge by the AABC over to the Rio Grande Trail. One that would be people riding up the Woody, the Rio Grande Trail through Woody Creek could cross over to the AABC. And I think that would be very useful. Maybe this grant could apply just to that bridge alone. The one at the Brush Creek Park and Ride going over there, it's really the same bridge that we looked at about 10 years ago or something. I went over and looked at that, stood at where it would be coming out, and I then voted against it because I just could not, I didn't want to be responsible for building that bridge. That would be a huge visual impact, and I think it would be a magnet for people wanting to jump off and do themselves in, and that sort of a thing.
There are
It's
plenty
like
of other
really
bridges for
high
that.
and long bridge. It's not, it's
Golden
way
Gate
bigger
comes
than
right
any
to
other pedestrian bridge we have. So we need to do a site visit. Everybody needs to look at it.
Yeah.
And maybe they have a little different engineering now, but I'm right now not in favor of the one there by the Brush Creek Park and Ride.
Okay. It's an opportunity, and this
Cover
board has
half
been,
the cost.
yeah, the board's been really clear about chasing grant dollars
How
where we
long
can
is
get
it
them. So,
available for?
It closes here soon. It's an annual, it'll come back up again, but as you know, if you are turned down and you were in the queue, your opportunity to getting it the following year,
So can
But
we
we're not in
certainly
the
is
queue
much
yet.
better.
apply
Are we
for it
in the
and tell
queue?
them to
No,
turn
we
us
have not done
down?
that yet, because I wanted to
Okay.
just
Can we
have that
apply for it, tell
conversation.
them to turn us down, but we want to be in the queue?
I don't know what the chances are of even getting it the first round, but timing would be really good. Second round, if you all ended up, moving it forward, so,
It could
It's
apply
just
to,
there's
it
a
could
lot of
apply
money
to
out
any
there
one
that-
of the three choices of bridges.
good.
So so say we have a different board next year who decides to pursue this project.
Then you apply for it.
Yeah, I understand that, but what is the harm in applying for it and then withdrawing if we just never
That's what he was just
pursue
saying,
it?
that,
But that would
Yeah.
be, that,
That's-
withdrawing means you never
withdrawing's a
get
little
it, but if you
different, yeah.
never want it, then you've
Yeah.
withdrawn from something you never want.
You could do that. I mean, you run certainly with the sponsors, whenever you're that far along and then you pull out, that does have some impact.
But they'll say you didn't even know what you wanted when you applied for it.
Yeah. There's some risk associated with it. It's just, it's a pretty good fit.
So can we apply for funding that way for the airport?
Some would like you to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We'll pass until there's a
Till we have a
ultimate
plan.
decision made.
And then we'll,
Because again, we don't want to, I just did not want to have to come back at some point and think we had this opportunity out there we could have done and altered it in some fashion, but I just didn't,
And we
I don't know
got
what that would look like, so.
Passing on the recommendation of open space and trails and passing on the survey responses that were overwhelmingly in favor of it.
because they only surveyed
just
people who rode a
wanna-
bike.
That's not true.
I'm just,
Pretty true.
but we've had this
I'm
discussion.
sensitive to this, so I just want us to be very open with the public about what we are turning down.
Fine, and I've heard from the public, they don't want to see those bridges there, so we're all hearing from different sides.
And I know you've got a
Patty,
site,
come on,
I am hearing from the public, and next time I will send them all to you.
please.
and you do have a site visit coming up, and there's further conversation that needs to take place. Again, just wanted to make sure we weren't passing on something here. So,
we are passing on it,
yes, yep,
but.
They are passing on it.
okay.
Kelly, please.
That is all on my
All
list.
right, other open discussion from other board members?
I don't think I have anything. I think talking to Leslie today solved that one for me, so.
We talked with Leslie briefly about this site visit to the distillery.
We just,
And
we
the
had.
emails we received from them, not McGrath, McCarthy, and that Leslie's following up with her on behalf of the board, which she's already done, I believe.
Which will be, that's on the 11th, right?
Okay, since we adjourned our special meeting in executive session this morning, I'm gonna call another special meeting this afternoon for the purposes of going into executive session, to discuss, items pursuant to 24-6-4024B, advice from counsel related to the Rock Creek Association litigation update, the abatement hearing procedure, and employee housing impact fee litigation update.
Kelly, if we could also add DH Pace litigation update, assuming whomever is making the motion is amenable to that, that would be great.
Okay, DH Pace litigation update.
I will make a motion to go into executive session for the purposes previously stated.
Thank you.
Sorry, the DH Pace litigation update would also be pursuant to 24-6-4024B, along
Thank
with
you.
the other items.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Sure. I'll
Okay, all right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of going into exec, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Pedro.
Thank you to the public. We will reconvene at noon tomorrow for our regular session.